So the real estate market is on fire. People are needing houses. There's a shortage of homes across the country. Why aren't builders taking advantage of it and building houses to fill up the market, to supply the demand that's out there? You would think that with a shortage of homes and house prices going through the roof, that builders would be out there just making new houses that they could sell. Whether it's a large builder like Lennar or KB Homes or any of the other major home developers, or even regional developers that build 2 or 3 houses at a time. You would think that if there's a demand, build the houses. It's not like if you build a house in 6 months, the demand is going to go away. Everybody knows that the demand is going to be there for some time. Well, here's a very good reason why this demand is not being fulfilled in that fashion. A couple articles to look at. One, we're going to talk about home construction. Another one that will talk about lumber prices. U.S. home construction boom is excluding a big group of Americans. What is that group? It is leaving one group out in the cold: buyers and renters seeking affordable housing in walkable semi-urban neighborhoods. What that means is suburban subdivision type homes. Doesn't have to be on 10 acres, but just not in downtown. They're being left out. Why wouldn't a builder just construct a house in a subdivision? There's plenty of lots. There's infill lots, and build something they can sell for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. Well, there's one huge obstacle, and it's more than just lumber prices. It's more than even just labor availability. You know, as a general contractor, we see every day the difficulty in finding enough labor, enough workers, enough framers, even tradesmen, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. But that can be solved. You can solve those problems. What you can't solve is the fixed cost, baseline cost. What does that mean? Well, in order to build a house in many parts of the country, excluding the cost of the lot and the cost of building the house and all the materials and labor, there are some fixed costs which go to every house, no matter how big it is. Doesn't matter if it's a $10 million house or a 800 square foot house. There are permit fees, impact fees. There are environmental fees in some places. In some parts of the country, Southern California is a good example, the base fees for building a house, even if you own the land and own everything else, can be $150,000, $200,000 just for the fees. In many parts of the country, it could be $60,000, $70,000 just in fees. Utility hookup fees, permit fees, taxes, impact fees. Many municipalities and jurisdictions require offsets for affordable housing, where if you're not building a house that is for low income, then you have to contribute to a fund which supports low income housing. That requirement by itself hurts availability of low income housing because builders can't build. Look at the house in this picture in this article. Small. This is actually a duplex, I believe. Looks like there's 2 sides to this house. In order to build this house, if each side was, let's say, 700 square feet, which is kind of what it looks like, 1,400 square foot duplex, if your building cost was $180,000 per square foot, even $200,000 square foot, you have $280,000 just in construction cost. Well, that would still be an affordable house. Now you add in the land. Well, the land might be another $50,000 or $40,000. So now you have $320,000 in cost. Let's say the builder wants a 20% markup. Fair, right, for their management. So now you're at $360,000. Well, for $360,000 for an affordable house, that's not bad. For a duplex, that's not bad. But if you add on $100,000 or $120,000 in impact fees, now all of a sudden you have a $500,000 house. You have a $500,000 house. That puts it out of the budget. Look, all the other market fees that are out there for labor, for lumber, those things can be overcome. The market can withstand those because it varies based on the complexity of the house. If you want to build a cheap, simple house, you can cut back on labor. You don't have as much trade work. You don't have as much carpentry to build moldings and high-end furnishings and that kind of thing. You can also cut back on stainless steel appliances or granite countertops or any of the other high-end furnishings that go into a house to make it an affordable house, a cheap house. But the impact fees and the taxes and the permit fees are going to be the same basically no matter what. And if those things are 100, 120, 130,000, now that house, no matter how cheap you build it, is going to be outside of the range of affordable housing. If you have a house that you can sell for $300, $320, somebody can get a mortgage for maybe $1,500, $1,600. That's an affordable house. That's less than rent for most people. If you have a house that sells for $500,000, now all of a sudden your mortgage is going to be $2,500, and the taxes are higher, insurance is higher, and that puts it out of range for an affordable house for blue-collar, middle-class people. So how do you make that math work? Well, as a builder, if you are building for a middle-class or affordable house type market, you may be able to get some incentives from the government. Same government that's charging the fees. If you commit to having a transaction price that is not necessarily market-based, but within a certain percentage of the median income for that area, you may be able to get offsets for some of those taxes and fees. As a home builder, if you are a client, somebody who's building your own house, it's very likely those fees are going to be baked into your price. So one of the other options is to do a remodel or addition. You're still going to have permit fees if you put an addition on a building or a remodel. However, the impact fees for a new construction may not be there. Your utility hookups are already going to be in place. The problem is that doesn't help the economy in creating a new household, a new residential unit. And it's kind of a catch-22 where the government and the market wants new housing units to come online, but they actually make it cheaper to fix up an old house rather than build a new house. It doesn't make any sense. So if you're looking to construct a new home, it might be cheaper for you to buy a teardown or a fixer-upper or a house that's really just has no value and build a new home on that property rather than buying vacant land. In fact, you'll see that in a lot of high-end areas. South Florida, Boca Raton, there's perfectly good houses. There's a house right now on Appleby Street in Boca Raton that is perfectly saleable house. It's been run down, built in the 1970s, asking about $1 million, but it's a teardown. Somebody's going to buy it and rip the house down because it'll be cheaper to build on that lot, and it's a more desirable lot, than it is to get all the permits and fees and impacts for new construction on an empty lot. And there are empty lots available. Southern California, same thing. Between the Coastal Commission, builder impact fees, environmental reviews, it could be $200,000 before you even break ground for a lot, not counting the price of the lot. That does nothing to get new projects, new home units, new residential units online. Those fees are what's holding it back, and they're looking now at maybe offsetting some of those fees, but that's the big holdup. In addition, in locations where those processes add time as well as fees, even though it's not a hard cost in dollars, it thwarts the market. It holds back the market because, look, if you're a home builder and you want to do a project, you want to churn out these projects. You want to get your house done in 7-8 months and have it be saleable. because you can predict your cost, you can predict the market. Most construction loans are 12 to 14 months max. So if you're a builder and you have a construction loan that is a conversion to permanent, construction to permanent, you can't let it go much longer than that. So if you're in a market where the permits and approvals and fees and impact and coastal commission, everything else, it's going to take you 2 years, you might as well not even build, because you have to build it for cash. You can't do construction loans. And that's going to keep you from picking that area to build. You might as well build in a place where you can get it done quickly. In a lot of North Texas, northern Dallas suburbs, you'll see a lot that'll be empty. And from the time they start scratching around in the dirt to do site work and grading and excavation until somebody's turning the key in the door, it can be 60 days. We've seen houses and even commercial properties from breaking ground to turning a key be 60 days, sometimes 90 days for a complicated project. That's why the development and adding units in those parts of the country happens faster than it does in places where there's a lot of bureaucracy and cost and impact fees. Let's talk about lumber prices. This is a measurement of a commodity market for lumber, of what is happening with lumber prices. Look at the volatility, right? Here's lumber. This is a board feet measurement. 900 down 29, 3%. This is a daily measurement. The volatility is what's hurting the market. It's not so much the high price, because if you know the price is high, you can price your house accordingly. In reality, the price of lumber by itself might affect the price of a house 10,000, 15,000, maybe a little bit more. And if you buy the lumber over time during the ups and downs, it may not affect it that much. The bigger problem is the other materials. Copper goes into the electrical and plumbing, appliances, labor, and the permit fees have a bigger effect on the price of a house than the lumber. And the market value. Look at the builders who are canceling contracts. They had a contract, let's say, from a buyer for $400,000. The buyer's waiting for their house to get built. 6 months later, the house is done, ready to close, and all of a sudden they get a letter that says, we're canceling your contract. We're repricing the house at $480,000. Either pay that or sell it to somebody else. The lumber price didn't make it go up to $480. Sure, there may have been lumber increases during that build cycle, but the bigger problem is the market, the demand, who's willing to pay more. You can blame it on lumber all you want. Lumber has small factor in it, but the real issue is the supply and demand. Supply is being held back mostly by procedural and policy decisions. Impact fees, permit fees, taxes, and the zoning to allow houses to go up and the delays that takes. Builders are wanting to build. Contractors are wanting to do work. The two things that hold back the most are availability of labor, and that's something that has to do with policy, and the permit fees and the permit turnaround time to build a new house. Look at our next video that talks about the musical chairs metaphor for housing market. Right now there are 5 million more people that want to buy houses than there are houses available. Builders could build that 5 million houses with the right incentives, with the right market. And I'm not talking about incentives where they need money from the government. They don't need welfare or rebates or incentive checks. They just need an open playing field where they can build. Let the builders and contractors build. Another area that has a little bit of a factor is work comp, where you need workers' compensation insurance for builders because it's a hazardous industry. There's some obstacles there. But the bigger issue is that this missing middle of homes, this median homes. You don't need to build just a cheap little shack. You're talking about a house that's 12 to 1400 square feet in a cluster neighborhood, not attached homes or townhomes, detached single family homes. And it's hard to build those homes in a lot of places. Some areas are easier, Texas, Florida, Arizona. There's a little more wiggle room to be able to build those level of houses. But in many metro areas that have the biggest housing problems, biggest homeless problems, biggest affordability problems, California, Oregon, New York, Northeast, Illinois, places where people want to go, it's very hard to build those median houses because of the obstacles of policy. Some of the policies are well-meaning. Some of them weren't intended to have this, but that's where a lot of government policies have unintended consequences that the private sector has to try to work around. The private sector is trying to solve the problem. The private sector, private companies want to create supply. They want to create the solution. That's what they're in business for. They make money doing that. When there's obstacles placed outside of their control, it's very difficult. When you have a business where there's 5 million buyers that want to buy something that doesn't exist, that's like a gold mine. There are 5 million people that want to buy houses that don't have available inventory. If you were in a business that sold anything, Beanie Babies, and there's 5 million buyers of Beanie Babies, you'd find a way to be able to produce that product. Real estate, housing is like that Beanie Baby. There's people that want them. And it's an expensive, profitable product. It's a product that the home builder, general contractor can make money on. So they want to do it. It's just that there's impossibilities created just in the math of permit fees and impact fees to make it difficult for a contractor to build houses in that range. So what do? You build an $800,000 house or $1 million house where you can absorb that 100 or 120,000 in fees and still make a profit. Sadly, taking houses away from the people who really need it in the middle class, blue collar, family type buyers.